Okay, everyone, stand by for just a couple of minutes and we'll get started. Hi, everyone, and thanks for being here. We're dealing with a little bit of audio issues here, so bear with us. We're going to try to get this thing started, but I appreciate everyone being here. This is going to be kind of a casual conversation, so I do encourage you to post any questions or comments there in the chat, and we will try to get to those whenever possible. But let me see if I can go ahead and bring in our guest here, and give me a second to get everybody's microphone set, and we will. Okay. Hopefully, can everyone hear me? All right.
Yeah, you.
And go ahead and just briefly say hello. Just make sure everybody's mic's working.
Okay. Hi, folks.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. Making sure that Mark can hear. You hear all four of us? He's a little bit behind yet.
Okay.
Okay. We're running about a 30-second delay right now, guys. Again, anybody that is out there or currently watching, please let me know in the chat if there's any issues with audio. A little tricky here. We're dealing with multiple microphones and multiple audio sources. So if there's any kind of bad feedback or somebody's volume level isn't ideal, please just post something there in the chat and let us know. So, okay. I got the sign over there that we're all good. So once again, I want to welcome everybody. Definitely want to welcome my guest who agreed to be here with me. And I thought just to start out, I would let everyone do a brief introduction so you know a little bit about them, a little bit about their experiences. We'll go ahead and start with Phil.
Sure. My name's Phil. I am a retired electrical engineer. I've got a background in design, construction, and operation maintenance of utility scale power plants, mostly in the U.S., but a few international, both in gas-fired, solar-powered, nuclear-powered facilities. Been in and out of the home automation scene for, I don't know, probably 20 years. I started with a X10, if anybody remembers what that is, way back when, power line communication, which, as much as I tried to make it work, it really never did. But started using an ADT pulse Z-Wave system maybe 10, 12 years ago. I pretty much used that as my primary home automation system until, maybe 4 months ago when I finally ditched that system and switched everything over to Home Assistant and local control using the Z-Wave devices I had and a Z-Wave dongle. And so while I've been playing around with Home Assistant for quite a while, I hadn't really been using it on a day-to-day basis until, like I said, about 4 months ago. Since then, built a lot of home, what are they called? ESP home devices, integrating some of my old alarm wiring into the Home Assistant system and just various things. I got a credit Resin Chem Tech. I got a lot of my ideas to start with here. Especially with, I think the parking assistant was the first thing I built, and I built, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 of those for friends and neighbors, and
wow,
goes over really well. But that's where I'm coming from. So pass it off to the next person.
So about 4 months on Home Assistant, correct?
Full time, yeah. I mean, I had it installed and had been using it off and on, but mostly as a fill-in for stuff that the Pulse devices couldn't do, which was quite a lot, to be honest with you. But I hadn't really gone full-fledged into it until maybe 4 months ago.
Okay. Radio?
Okay, my name is Bob. I'm in the Niagara Falls, Ontario area of Canada. And I got into Home Assistant back in about 2020. I was doing a few little devices around the house here and there, and I was just looking for a way to tie it together. A friend of mine suggested the Home Assistant, and as soon as I set it up on a Pi 3 and learned a little bit about ESP Home, I was away. I just loved the way ESP Home worked. It didn't work well on the Pi, unfortunately, so I had to upgrade to a server, which my friend helped with. But again, that's been since about 2020. And I mean, I'm not really a programmer by any means, but I find I can make things work in Home Assistant. So I love it.
Okay, great. Dave?
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm a system engineer for a major hospital here in Central Florida. I get involved with Home Assistant about a year ago. About 10 years ago, we bought a new home, and my wife asked me to install an alarm, and I purchased a Honeywell alarm, and that came with the Z-Wave module. So I bought a lock that was Z-Wave compatible, and when you put in your code to the lock, it unlocks the door and turns the alarm off or on. So from there, that was really the only automation that I had for some time. My wife went to visit her sister and came back and told me about this device that she had where you asked the device to play music, and it played whatever music you asked. So she wanted one, so I bought an Amazon device, and we hooked up a couple of lights for that. And then I started getting into automation with Habitat. And I used Habitat for quite a while. And about a year ago, I had asked ResinChem what's so good about Home Assistant. And he said it'd probably be easier if I told you what wasn't good about it. And I began using Home Assistant then. I had dabbled with it a couple of times before, but nothing major. I could never get it to work right. But about a year ago, I really got into Home Assistant, love it. And all of my automations now are on Home Assistant. I've dumped everything from Habitat to Home Assistant, and everything is running flawlessly, which is surprising, but that's where I am today.
You're muted, Steve.
I think we lost ResinChem's
Here we go.
voice.
Yeah. Okay, we're not hearing you right now. Okay, guys, we can still hear each other?
I can hear everybody.
Like,
Except
Okay.
Steve. Yep.
Okay, just can't hear Steve. No, still not hearing you.
Okay, now what about now?
There you go.
I don't know, it's the reason my audio source got turned off. Okay, you can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'll start over again. Again, I'm ResinChem, or Steve. Most of you know me. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. Now retired, but spent the last 10 years as a chief technology officer at the university. So I do have a bit of programming background, but all of my experience was really in the Microsoft realm. So .NET, SQL Server, not a lot of that translates to Home Assistant. Way back before that, I was a polymer chemist. So I've been on Home Assistant since September 2018, so about 7 years now. The first version I actually installed, I went back and looked, was version 0.78, and that was under the old, that's when they put out new releases of Home Assistant every 2 weeks instead of once a month, and everything was done in YAML. There was no UI editors. In fact, the Lovelace dashboards had just been introduced when I started out, so I learned YAML way back when, and that's just what I've stuck with. So the UI editors are great. I've played around with them for some of my videos, but I still have never created a single automation or script or helper through the UI editors. I'm strictly a YAML guy. One thing I wanted to go back around and ask real quick that I forgot to ask here is, what was your first smart home device? Dave, we'll go ahead and start with you.
All right. Well, as I said, my first device was actually the lock. And from there, it went to switches to turn on and off with the Amazon Voice. And from there, it went to devices that I have built for temperature settings and motion settings around the house so that lights will turn on and off automatically. But the lock was really my first automation device.
All right. Okay. Bob?
First thing I did was probably stair lighting controller. We have a walkway in our upstairs bedroom area, and it's one of those ones that has 2 3-way switches that are just totally not in the area where you could turn it on and off and have any light walking down the hall. Yeah, I see you smiling there, Phil. I know you had the same type of situation. But that was the first thing I did, and I always thought, well, geez, I'd like to do more with that. So I started with that, and then the audio control was the other thing we did for the house. I wanted to be able to control the stereo from different rooms of the house without having to buy an expensive stereo that had an app-based control, which is what I've done since.
Okay. Phil, what got you started?
Yeah, I think I mentioned way back when with X10, if you want to call that a smart home device, it kind of was. After that, then it was the Z-Wave ADT system, which for what it was at the time, it worked pretty well. I was able to integrate a lot of light and switch control with whether or not I armed the alarm system. When we came home, lights would turn on. When we left, lights would turn off. We do timing. Now what I'm doing right now that I really like is a lot of information display. Kind of drives my wife crazy, but it's for me, it's cool to see how much I can put up on the display and not have to think about whether or not the dryer is going to be done in 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Get a countdown.
Yeah.
Little things like that.
All right. For me, I had probably an internet-enabled audio receiver and a couple internet-enabled devices. My first what got me started on this, believe it or not, was Google and their speaker.
Yeah.
Shortly after Google came out with their speaker, I actually scored one through a door prize at a conference. So I brought it home, hooked it up, started playing around, what's the temperature, asking all the Google stuff. But then when I realized you could actually start controlling devices, that's what got me off and running. So that's what got me started. Which kind of leads into the next topic I wanted to ask about is, what is the current state of your smart home right now, and how did you get there? So you talked about that a little bit. I know, Phil, you talked about starting with X10, but I guess how did you start out, and how did you end up on Home Assistant? We'll go ahead and Bob, if you want to start kick this one off.
Yeah, basically, if I wouldn't have been talking to the one coworker friend of mine about the home automation, I probably would have still been traveling down that road of just making one-off things that kind of fulfilled the needs of what I had around the house. But once he mentioned it and I looked into it, like I say, I think it was the ease of setting it up and the ease of jumping in at whatever speed you wanted to. That has helped me add things as needed. Like I usually try and mock something up first, maybe make a test bed, get it going before I even introduce it to the wife into the home, kind of a deal. So that's the one thing I like about Home Assistant as well. It's really allowed me that kind of transition time and the ability to make extra dashboards and things along that line that are just test dashboards. So I kind of get the wife approval right from the get-go. As soon as she sees it in action, it's like, hey, thumbs up. It's good. It's what we need.
Yeah. We're going to come back to the wife approval factor in a minute.
Sounds good.
Go ahead, Dave. How did you get where you are today?
Well, like I said, I went to Habitat for full automation, and that was pretty good. The reason I did that was because we have a strange situation in our house. We have a large home with 3 or 4 bedrooms, and every bedroom leading to the family room has a light switch to turn on the light in the family room, so you're not entering a big dark area. all except for the master bedroom. The master bedroom has no light coming into the family room, which is the only room off of the master bedroom. So we had to walk through the living room to find the light switch to turn it off or turn it on in a dark room. I typically get up around 5:30 in the morning, so the room is very dark. So my automation stemmed from the fact that I needed light in the morning. And my first automations were turning on the lights at about 5:30 in the morning, very dim, so that I could come out and walk through the house, take the dog out. And a few minutes later, the lights would turn on a little bit brighter so that by the time I brought the dog back in, I could have light, make my lunch, get ready for work, and then automatically turn off when I was leaving the house for work. So I never have to touch a light switch in the morning. And that's pretty much how I get into that with the Habitat.
Right. And then how long ago did you move to Home Assistant? Or are you still in the process? You were migrating slowly, weren't you? I think if I remember.
Right. About a year ago, Phil had mentioned your parking assistant. And so just over a year ago, I tried to build the parking assistant, ran into several problems with it due to my Wi-Fi. I reached out to Steve and he was able to help me. Took about a month or so, but we finally figured out it was my Wi-Fi settings, and we got that up and running. And my wife loves that automation, one of the few that she actually likes. But so then, like I said, I had asked Steve what's so great about Home Assistant, and when he told me, you can do everything with it, because at that time I was trying to build motion sensors into Habitat, build my own Habitat motion sensors. You just couldn't do it. And when I found out through Home Assistant you could do it, just over a year ago, I developed that and started working with that. So about Home Assistant, about a year now.
Okay. Phil?
So the state of my system right now, pretty much it's doing everything. Like I said, I completely ditched the ADT alarm system. They hadn't updated hardware in I don't know how long, and software was pretty hit or miss. So once I was able to get all my Z-Wave devices into Home Assistant, I could really do just about whatever I wanted to. I did replace the alarm system with, I guess, a radio-based system, wireless, if you will. That integrates pretty well into Home Assistant through the cloud. The only downside is all the wireless sensors have a 10 to 30 second delay before they show their state in Home Assistant. So what I just finished doing is I took all my old alarm wiring, which is all hardwired, built an ESP interface, and wired that all up to the ESP home. Now I've got basically 2 sensors on each door and window, but the hardwired ones register instantly. I can tell what's open, what's closed. And one thing I was missing when we switched to ADT, or switched away from ADT, was I had a status of what zones were open, which zones were closed at the alarm control panel. The Simply Safe system I installed would do that, but it was a lot harder to see. So I bought a scene controller that has, I don't know, 5 buttons on it and programmable LEDs. So now I've programmed each of those LEDs to tell me what the state of my door, 2 of my door locks and the upstairs and downstairs openings. So I can tell if I'm ready to arm the system or not.
Right.
But that's the latest thing I've been working on. And just seems like every day I think it's something I want to do, and I can only do so much in a day. So
Right.
I've got a long list.
For sure.
Well, I mentioned it again. Google Home's what got me started, but initially I just had got a couple dozen smart plugs running whatever manufacturer software was on them. I ended up with a garage door opener, a Ring doorbell, and then before long, you end up with like 8 or 10 different apps on your phone, each of them with different accounts. And every time you want to do something, unlock your phone, try to remember which app it is to turn on this light, turn that. I mean, it's just, it wasn't wasn't scalable for what I was doing. So I started looking for an all-in-one system, and I almost went with Demotics at the time. You got to remember this was around 2016, 2017. Home Assistant was there, but it was nowhere near where it was today. So I almost went with Demotics, but the thing that drew me into Home Assistant was really the community. There was so much community support out there, and I knew I was going to need help getting started. And so I spent a lot of time browsing forums, and it just seemed like it was much more active. It was much more beginner-friendly forums than what I was seeing on Demotics. So I ended up going with Home Assistant. Like most people, I started out on a Raspberry Pi. Didn't take long to outgrow that, and I was always worried about that SD card. I know now there's a lot of ways to boot externally and boot off of a network, but back then it was SD card. So that always had me worried. So as the home grew, I was looking for something more stable. I tried VirtualBox on Windows. It was an unmitigated disaster for me. That lasted about a month before I actually migrated over to Proxmox. So I'm running Home Assistant in a VM on Proxmox on its own mini PC. Been doing that for about 5 years. I've been extremely happy with that. I've never had a single issue with the VM going down. So that's kind of where I'm at today, but it's taken me 7 years to get where I am today. So I don't want to scare off anybody that's just looking to get started. Starting with the Raspberry Pi is great. It's an easy entryway to at least try it out. But if it starts becoming more of an integrated part of your home, then you might look for something with a little more horsepower, a little more reliability than a Raspberry Pi. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for the Proxmox videos, because that got me to move mine over to that as well. I was running on a Pi as well until recently, actually.
Yeah, it was. I won't go into the whole VirtualBox. And I know some people run it on VirtualBox. It just did not work for me. The Windows updates, the box rebooting, it just there were too many issues to have Home Assistant up 24/7 for me on VirtualBox. So, so let's talk next. And you guys have kind of mentioned it, but if you have one or two of your favorite automations, what those are. And since I haven't done that, I'm going to go ahead and flip my page here, and I will go ahead and kick this one off. I can tell you this, that one of my favorite automations, and it's really simple, was the washer and dryer notifications. And that's one of the early ones I did, because what that did was it got the wife on board. We're going to talk about the wife approval factor. But we spend most of our time down here in the basement, and you can't hear the washer and the dryer. So she would constantly be asking, can you see if the washer's done? Can you see if the dryer's done? Well, there was a perfect opportunity for me to create something that she would get a benefit out of and make her much more willing to consider other automations down the road. So that's my favorite one in terms of that. But I actually am really happy with some of the stuff I do with my bed sensor when I added that bed sensor. So I've got so many things that can happen automatically based on when I get in bed or when I get out of bed. And it knows what day of the week it is, and it will power up the basement and turn on the news and turn on all my lights and get me ready to work when I get out of bed in the morning. It also controls my air conditioner. So that is probably one of my favorites. It gets used obviously every day. So who wants to go next? Phil? What are a couple of your favorite automations?
I've got really two. So the one I like a lot is my mailbox sensor. I was doing I had a Ring sensor that I used to have in there. It worked half the time. I've since replaced it with just a door window sensor with the battery powered, with the controls mounted exterior from the mailbox, since it's metal. But it's almost 100% reliable now. When mail's here, I get a notification on my speaker, I get one on my display, and then I know to go out and get it, and it works great. The other one I really like that solved a problem that probably not too many people have, but we have a large saltwater aquarium, and when it gets warm in the house, it requires cooling. So we have a chiller that's mounted on the opposite side of the wall from the aquarium in a laundry room. When the chiller would go on, it would dump all that heat into the laundry room, get up to 90 degrees in there, and we have to go turn the vent fan on the laundry room to try and keep it manageable. I added a smart plug to the chiller that it doesn't turn the chiller on and off, but it looks at the power consumption. So whenever the chiller is drawing more than, say, 30 amps, another smart switch on the vent fan turns the vent fan on, runs it as long as the chiller's on. When the chiller turns off, it runs for 5 minutes and then turns the fan off. This summer, that saved us a lot of getting up and down, going to the laundry room to turn the fan on and off. I like that one. I think my wife likes that one too.
That always helps.
Yeah.
Dave?
My favorite automation is one in the garage. I mentioned the lights and the foolish light situation that we have in the house. And part of that is that when I leave in the morning and I go out through the garage door, as soon as I open up the garage door, the main door to the garage opens through a relay that I had set up. We had a pretty dumb garage door setting or opener. You could only push the button in the house to open it and close it. I added a relay to that so that when the inside garage door opens up, the main garage door will open as well. And I love that. But like I said earlier, I leave the house between 5:30 and 6 every morning. My wife would leave the house around 8 o'clock, so I had to turn that off for her. So that automation only runs for about an hour when that door opens. When my wife goes out, she's an old-fashioned gal, and she likes to push the button, and that's what she does. On occasion, when she has left the house earlier, before 7 o'clock, and the door has opened up, it has scared her, and she doesn't understand what's going on. And I usually get texts or phone calls at that point. But that's my favorite automation for the garage door opener.
That's what, Bob?
Yeah. So a couple of things. The one thing I like is I've managed to, we have what's called a backsplit house. And again, it's very hard to get light switches that really work well because you're turning it up and you don't have a three-way downstairs. So basically what I did is I have used timers and IR detectors. And I now have, for every level of the house, I can basically walk out of the bedroom in the morning, walk down the stairs, light turns on, walk down the next set of the stairs to the next level, light turns on, the next set of stairs and the basement lights turn on, use the washroom, whatever, open, close the doors, and the lights turn off and on automatically. Like I can go through the whole house without having to, again, like you're saying, Dave, without having to turn a light switch on. That's been a really nice one. The other one that I really incorporated was my wife likes to light a lot of candles and stuff like that to watch TV and set the ambiance. So one thing I did a while back is I started going into the electronic candles, and I added the automation. So she had buttons I programmed on a remote control. Green light was, okay, it's green light, it's go, it's TV time. Hit the green light, turns on all her knickknacks and her lights and her candles and everything else. And when it's almost time to go to bed, you might want to turn the knickknacks off. Well, hit the yellow because it's almost time to stop. Hit the yellow button, turns everything off. And then when she hits the red button, that turns on the stair lights for 2 minutes and make sure that all the other lights are off. So it gives her light to leave the room without having to turn any of the other lights or on or off. And that's just incorporating the buttons that aren't used on the remote controls that she has already for the TV. So that's my favorite automations.
All right. And guys, I apologize. I know my video is doing some flickering, and that happens sometimes with the OBS Studio with too many USB devices. I could fix it, but it requires a reboot, and that's not going to work during a live stream. So the good news is
Sorry about that.
But the good news is you don't need to see me. And so all right, let's go ahead and move on to the next. So we talked about favorite automations. On the flip side of that, have you ever had an automation that was a complete unmitigated disaster that you've either had to remove or shut down or something along those lines?
I can
Something
jump
you
in there first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so what I had was, I know you've talked a little bit about blueprints, and you said you haven't really done much with blueprints. I've done a little bit with them, and when I first started doing it, I think one of the first ones I did was my office lighting, because I worked from home at that time. And I just found that it just was responding too quickly and shutting them off, and I just never got the controls working quite the same way. I think if I went back again to do it again, I think I probably have enough experience now with the different sensors to set it up properly. But that one there, I just like, get rid of this. I can't make it work the way I want to. It's turning on. I'm in a video meeting. My light's turning on and off when it should not be. And it just like, now I got to shut that down.
Bill, you ever had anything that went sideways or didn't play well with the family?
I can't really think of any specific instance where something was just so bad that I had to turn it off. I had some, and I can't think of any specifics. They just weren't doing anything for me, so I finally stopped using them.
Right.
One thing that did happen, and it's going to be funny because I just said my mailbox sensor is one of my favorite automations. So, a couple weeks ago, something glitched. I don't know what happened, but I was getting mail notifications every 5 seconds. My wife gets them too, so she wasn't happy either. But and we were out of town, so I was able at least to log in, turn off the automation, and get it to stop. I never really figured out what happened. I took the sensor apart, put it back together. Didn't seem to be anything wrong with it, and it's working again. But little things like that happen.
Yeah, I don't know if I can pick just one.
Wow.
I would say the one thing that's changed over time is the amount of notifications that we send from Home Assistant. It's really cool, and it's kind of a novelty at first, but it starts to get pretty routine and pretty old pretty quick. So I would say, especially the push notifications to the phone, we've really backed off on those. And even the voice notifications don't have quite as many voice notifications as I don't need to have Google announce every time the garage door goes up and down. That gets really annoying really fast. And so it's constant tweaking. I like to try to observe how the wife is interacting and then tweak things based on how especially when it comes to Google and the phrasing that she's using. So I don't know. I still struggle, and Dave, you talked about with the garage lighting. In my particular case, I've got an unusually shaped garage with doors in weird spots, and that seems like it's an automation I'm constantly tweaking to trying to make better. So I would say I haven't had to take it out, but it's still not perfect. It still needs work at times. So, but it is nice. I mean, I do have a lot of input Boolean helpers that turn a lot of things like that off and on. So, I've got a snooze button that snoozes all the voice notifications. Because after about the third time, a voice notification about the dryer woke me up when I was trying to take a nap. I decided I needed a snooze button for voice notifications. So I don't know if I've had anything that's really been, there's been some things that the wife hasn't cared for that I've either had to reconfigure or approach it in a different way. But nothing that has been a major disaster. And speaking of that, you talked about logging in remotely. How many of you guys have not used Nabakasa? Have a Nabakasa subscription?
Yeah, I do.
I don't have it.
Okay, you don't? Okay. Just curious, because I know there are obviously ways to set up your Home Assistant so you can access it remotely with things like reverse proxies and ports on your firewall and all that kind of stuff. Nabakasa obviously makes that very easy.
Yeah.
And that means I don't need to have all those Ring and all those other apps on my phone. I just need to have that one app to be able to access and be able to turn things off and on remotely if need be. So, so how much time do you say, this is one complaint I've heard about Home Assistant. I know we were talking about this a little bit before the stream started. How long do you say you spend each month just in maintenance, upgrades, patches, not necessarily adding new things or tweaking things? How much time do you say you spend every month, whether it be WLED, Tasmota, ESP Home, Home Assistant? How much time do you think you spend every month just in maintenance on your home system? Anybody can speak up.
I don't really spend a whole lot of time. I think we might get into this later, but I'm one of those that tends to not like notifications telling me I have an update waiting. So right or wrong, I tend to update things fairly quickly. I'd say I spend more time with the ESP Home updates just because each device has to be updated individually, if you will. Home Home Assistant updates, there's one main one and maybe a couple dot updates during the month. Those tend to go pretty well. I am getting better. I'm trying to read what is actually going to happen before I do it. See if there's any breaking changes I need to be aware of.
Right.
Haven't found any yet, but so I'd say I probably spend maybe at 2 hours a month, 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
I spend a whole lot more time tweaking automations, coming up with new automations that I kind of lose. The time I spend updating doesn't seem to amount to much
Right.
compared to the other times.
Dave, how about you?
I probably spend a couple of hours. Like Phil said, with ESP Home is really where the issue is. And what I typically do with ESP Home is to make sure nothing breaks, I will take one of my homemade devices and I will update one device. And if that goes well, since they're all pretty much the same, I will set ESP Home to update them all as long as that one goes well.
Yeah.
So the couple of hours that is spent on maintenance is not me waiting over a computer. I can kind of set it and forget it once I know that first device comes up and is going to work. The Home Assistant updates are pretty good right now, so they update well. And again, it's not time spent; it's just time in setting the update off. So that's pretty much it. I'd say a couple of hours.
All right. Bob?
I think I'm probably more along the line of about 6 hours, but that's partly because I usually watch all the release parties online and everything else, and I consider that part of the maintenance and keeping up to date with what they're planning on doing and what's going on in the community. So I usually try and watch it. I mean, I do miss the odd one every now and then. So I mean, that's usually a couple hours right there. Again, I know I've mentioned to you guys before, but we'll mention everybody who's watching. I just find I can't have updates sitting down in the bottom, especially for ESP Home. And that is something that I find that, give you an example, I just had a situation downstairs where the wife says, oh, it'd be really nice if we had a light on that clock. So, of course, the mind starts turning. Well, the easy ESP device to get to was just inside the garage, and I had open ports on it. So I thought, hey, I'll just run a line to there. Well, with making constant little changes like that, I find that I tend to make more backups and keep all the YAML code, keep all the binaries and everything else, because if I go back too far, I might lose something I've added. Then all of a sudden I'm going to have to figure out, oh yeah, that's right, that light I added at a later date. I didn't keep a binary. So I tend probably about 6 hours a month to keep everything right up to date and proper backups in a couple of spots and things like that.
Yeah, I'm probably about the same, maybe 1 or 2 hours a month. It does depend upon Home Assistant and breaking changes. I've been using Home Assistant long enough that a couple of times breaking changes have really come back to bite me. The big one for me was they changed how MQTT was defined in YAML, moved from a top-level integration to a platform. And with hundreds upon hundreds of MQTT defined entities in YAML, all those had to be fixed. So that was a bad month. But most of the time, I rarely get hit with breaking changes. Usually it's something about MQTT, which seems to get updated a lot. But it's 1 or 2 months. It's going to lead into the next topic, and I'll Bob, you already mentioned it about you just can't stand to have updates waiting. I do update Home Assistant every month. I usually wait to the .1 or .2 release, not the 0 release. I do stay up to date on that because I have been bitten by skipping back in my earlier days, skipped 3 or 4 months, and then you try to upgrade. You've got breaking changes from every month. If you have a problem trying to find that, I update ESP Home all the time, but I do not update already installed devices. So I update the base Home Assistant, so anything new I create is always current. But I take the Tasmota. If you go to the Tasmota homepage, right at the top, it says if it's not broke, don't fix it. So that tends to be the approach I take with things like WLED, ESP Home, Tasmota. If the devices are installed, they're already working, then I generally don't upgrade them, especially devices that are installed like Shelly relays are installed behind light switches in the wall. If I have to take that back out and reflash it, that's not a fun thing to do. Right. So I generally don't upgrade unless there is some kind of major new feature I want to take advantage of, or The other thing that bites me by doing that is that a Home Assistant update will require that these third-party systems be at a certain level. So I've been bitten by both Tasmota and WLED in that case, where I think somewhere in the last 6 months, maybe, Home Assistant said that all WLED had to be at least 0.14 to remain integration. I had old WLED installs that were way back older than that. So then I'm forced to upgrade all of my WLED. And again, because I've skipped all those versions, it now makes that upgrading much more difficult. So it's a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You either spend your time as you go along, keeping everything updated like Bob does, or at some point you have to bite the bullet and go through a whole bunch of upgrades down the road. So, but on average, unless there's a major breaking change, it's no more than a month or two. So that's kind of my philosophy on upgrading. What about, I know, Bob, you already said that if there's an upgrade out there, you got to apply it.
I'm on it. Yeah.
What about Phil and Dave? What's your philosophy?
I'm with Bob. I guess you could call it OCD. I'm not sure, but anything that flashes that says you need to update, I got to update it. My wife
prepare for it
because when her phone is sitting on the couch and I know there's an update for it, I'll kind of borrow it and slyly start the update for her.
I'm glad I'm not alone here.
What about you, Dave? Do you keep everything up to date all the time?
I'm kind of in the middle. I will update everything on a monthly basis, but not right away. When the notifications come out for the updates, I will wait a while and upgrade it. I think I just updated October's a week ago, and now we're getting ready for November's updates. And I'll probably do that towards the end of the month. So I'm not quite as, okay, an update's ready, I got to jump on it. But by the end of the month, it'll get updated.
Yeah, there are a lot of people I talk to are in the kind of the Phil and the Bob school that when an update comes out, they update every month, every time. Part of my problem is having been in Home Assistant for so long, I do have some stuff so for example, some of my ESP Home nodes use external libraries that I have to import. And then an upgrade can break that. Now I'm waiting on the developer to fix it on their end, if they even do. And some of the things like my ILO 9341 touchscreens, one of the guys on the Discord channel, Dorfmeister, actually developed that library. So I know him, at least I can reach out and say, hey, your library's broke, but I've got to wait for him to have time to fix it. So I think I have a lot more, I guess, potential breakpoints in my system. I've been around for so long and so many things done in YAML, and they change something in that. So yeah, I generally will keep Home Assistant updated, but otherwise, yeah, I'm pretty far behind on some of my versions of stuff.
Okay.
So,
Sure.
In those same stance, what about local versus cloud? Where are you in terms of your own house, in terms of devices that are local only, or ones that are cloud or hybrid? I guess what's your philosophy on cloud versus local devices? I don't know, Bob, you want to start?
Yeah, basically, I don't really have a lot of cloud interaction. I mean, obviously, a few devices do reach out, but by and far, I find most of my things are local, and that's the way I really want to keep it. I mean, right now, if you were to say, well, what do you really need to add? I really don't. I think my house is sufficient with the way it is. I mean, there's some little things to add, but most of it would probably just be local as well. I don't really see much need for it. I mean, Nabucasa you brought up, I might consider that down the road as well. But at this point in time, I got everything so local that I don't really need to, reach my instance from off premise.
All right, Phil?
I'm kind of agnostic. I have a lot of cloud devices, garage door openers, Ring, my weather station. I'm sure there's some more I'm not thinking of, but that said, if I have to replace any of those, I might consider going local only, but I'm not necessarily opposed to cloud. I get the security risks. I get the issues with if the cloud shuts down, you've lost that hardware. Well, I've already got the hardware, so replacing it with something else right now I can just as easily replace it with something else later.
Right.
Yeah.
Dave, did I?
I am all, well, I can't say I'm all local, but my philosophy is all local. When we got the Amazon several years ago, I bought 2 Wi-Fi switches to play around with and to show my wife basically with your voice, you can turn these on and off. But everything in Home Assistant is done locally. And I'm even building several speakers in the house to deal with voice assistant locally because I just don't like everything going over the cloud. Here in Central Florida, we get a lot of lightning storms. My house has been hit 3 times by lightning in the last 10 years. And when the utilities get hit and the internet goes down, nothing works. And we have had that many, many times. And with the Home Assistant local, again, I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, my lights are on, everything is running fine. We go to talk to Amazon and she can't connect to the internet, and I'm all thumbs up about that because I am all local. The 2 Wi-Fi switches that I have will eventually, when they begin to fail, will eventually get moved over to Z-Wave or Zigbee, one or the other.
Right. I am just about 100% local. I still have the Ring doorbell, which one of my earliest devices and one of my still want to replace. I have some physical limitations in terms of replacing that doorbell. I was probably 50-50 just a few years ago, but I made a concerted effort after being burnt by Philips Hue, being forced to buy a new hub, and then being the one that really kicked it over the top for me was Wink. I had a Wink hub. Actually went out and bought the 2nd generation of the Wink hub. Right on the box it says free for life until it wasn't. Then Wink basically put out a ransom demand. You either paid for a subscription or they bricked your device. And that's when I said, I'm done. I'm done with the cloud. I'm done with manufacturers. I started learning how to install Tasmota and ESP Home on my own devices. Luckily, back then, most of those devices were ESP8266 based, so they were easy to flash. In fact, a lot of them could be flashed over the air with a Raspberry Pi. You never had to take them apart and solder anything to them. That started to change over time, and it's nearly impossible to find those now. But I stocked up on a whole bunch of smart plugs, switches, dimmers. I got a whole bin full in there. They're ESP8266 based, so I can make them local if I need them.
Nice.
But yeah, so I've made a concerted effort, and privacy is part of it. But really, it's reliability and speed, and not requiring internet, and not having to get all the spam email because you create an account and they're going to send you advertising and marketing emails nonstop. It's more about that for me. I wrote a blog article a couple of years back. We had about an 18-hour internet outage. Everything in my house continued to work. All my automations, all my lights. Obviously, Google did not work. So, the wife had to find a different way to interact with Home Assistant because the Google speakers weren't working. Other than that, pretty much everything worked. So I won't even, for me at my point in time, I won't even consider a cloud device unless I take that back. My garage door opener has cloud, but it also has local functionality. So it's integrated into Home Assistant, can be controlled locally. It does have auto open. I'm using its geofencing for that, but I could just as easily use Home Assistant's geofencing if I wanted to. Okay. So I will consider devices that might have a cloud component that has some features, but it needs to also have the local ability through MQTT or something like that before I'll consider adding it. So
perfect.
Okay.
We've got just a few minutes left and a number of questions I want to get to. I would want to ask this question. What is your, I guess, favorite thing about Home Assistant today? I don't know. Phil, you want to start out?
Sure. I gotta maybe change that a little bit. One of the things I'm most excited about with Home Assistant right now, as of today, is their because I use Z-Wave and I'm using a Proxmox server to host Home Assistant. As of right now, I can't use high availability because I have a dongle plugged into Proxmox. Well, I just saw, I think it's the at the last release of ESP at
Yeah,
Home,
big,
their
the big antenna.
the big antenna one, which right now is also, it's basically a USB dongle, but they're now introducing an ESP Home software to put on a PoE. I don't know what a PoE device that you
Right.
can plug your
Right.
antenna into that and basically plug your Z-Wave into IP, which when I started looking for that before this, so many articles said, don't do that. It'll never work. There's a difference between an IP stack and a serial stack that it just timing won't work. But if you believe the live streams, they say they've got it working. It's working well. So that's probably going to be my next, well, maybe not my next update or upgrade, but that's certainly on the list of things to do.
All right.
Buy that antenna dongle.
I saw that Waith and I guess out there. I actually we're going to talk about this in just a second. We're talking about the Google Home being one of the few devices that I have that's still internet enabled. And he's asking about Home Assistant voice. I again mentioned it before the stream started that I have both a voice preview edition and one of the M5 stack Atoms, I think that's what they're called. I'm still sitting in the box. So my goal is to eventually get to local voice. I've been watching it for a long time. I feel like it's just now getting to the point where it's kind of ready to do without having to do a whole bunch of hacky behind the scenes stuff. So it is one of the things I'm going to be looking at. I've got the hardware, but I've not tried to do anything yet. Again, as I mentioned, that part of what I want to do is I also want to have local AI to be able to do that, because the wife does use the Google speakers for a lot of other things other than Home Assistant. And I know I can't lose that functionality. So I think I'm really excited about what they've done with voice already, but it has taken a while to get here. And I think it's just going to continue to improve. And I think it's just about the point where I'm ready to take a stab at it. I've always wanted to have the two-way conversation with Home Assistant. The one thing I've been unable to do. So for example, I mentioned my bed sensor. When I get out of bed in the morning, I would like for, the speaker to pop up and say, good morning. Would you like me to do X? And then say yes or no. Right now, I can either issue a command or I can get an announcement. I can't have that back and forth. I can't have it prompt me and wait for a reply. That's the one thing that you can do with the new Home Assistant speakers and be able to do that. So that's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to. So along those lines, what do you guys, I guess, either what's your current project, next big project? Where would you like to go next with Home Assistant? Is it local voice? Is it AI? Is it something else? Or I guess I'll say what's coming down the pike for you guys? Bob?
Yeah, I would like to get into the voice now. I mean, with the holiday season coming on and stuff like that, I mean, that's my gung-ho. I mean, we just love it. We're started right now, believe it or not. Everything's out of the garage, ready to go. So when I kind of get comfortable and have things under control there, I think by about December, so I really want to start looking into getting something, maybe the voice preview or something along that line. I think I'd rather do that to support Home Assistant, go with the voice preview and stick with what they're doing, learning from, as opposed to going with the Atom Echo route myself.
Okay. Dave, what are you working on?
I had the Atom Echo, and it was fun to play with before voice became voice. But I have upgraded to the voice PE, which I have in the living room. And here in the office, I have a Satellite One from Future Proof Homes. And Future Proof Homes was the one that I really thought I would be putting speakers in every room, which is a future goal. But I have so much fun with the voice. I have set it up to answer questions and ask questions. And because of the movie Iron Man, I have set mine up with that voice. I don't want to say it because mine will go off. But I've set it up with that voice and that attitude. And I never know what I'm going to get out of it. I could ask it to turn on the light, and it could turn on the light. Or it could turn on the light and give me a whole story about my room being illuminated. So it's pretty fun to work with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Phil, I think, have you?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of already mentioned what my next project, if you will, would be as far as AI goes. I know we talked a little bit about that. About the only thing I use AI for it, and I guess right now talking to your home speaker, at least for Google Home, it's not true AI yet, although I think they're adding that. It's basically just a web search, right? So it hasn't really interested me that much, AI on a speaker, but I do use it. I will say, when I started doing Home Assistant, or started using Home Assistant, I do my normal Google searches to try and find out how to do things, but I have started relying a lot on asking ChatGPT, here are my inputs. This is what I want to do. Give me a starting point. And I can go from there. It gives me YAML that I can plug in, and I can tweak it however I want to. My daughter gives me a bad time because she says I'm ruining the environment by making all these data centers spin up and do that for me, but okay.
Well, I'm like you. I was amazed when the whole Chat GPT thing first started up, and that's one of the first things I did is I went out and said, write me an automation. It does, and it just kicked out this perfect YAML, and I was like, I was flabbergasted. Like, how did it know to be able to write that YAML exactly perfect? You just copy and paste it, change the entity names, and you're good to go. Yeah. And so, I was pretty amazed at some of the things that helping out even with creating automations. And
the biggest thing I find it helps me with being a relative newbie to YAML is I'll paste a YAML script that's not working and say, where's my syntax error? And I find it pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Have I not, Bob, did I ask you yet?
I believe you did. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I can't keep track of who's answered the questions and who hasn't. We are coming up here on the top of the hour. And I said we would try to target this to be about an hour. So the last question I hear that I want to talk about a little bit is, what's the one thing you wish that you could tell the developers over Home Assistant that you would like to see changed or done differently in Home Assistant? Or maybe along those lines, what's your biggest pet peeve about Home Assistant?
Well, I think for myself, over the past week or so, was the first time my wife has said, why are they doing so many updates? Why do you have to do so many updates? And it's like, you're right. Like, I like to keep up to date, but she just happens to walk down past that stair light that I'm updating right now for that split second, and it didn't work. It's like, this light didn't work. And so to me, it's kind of like, it's good to have that accelerator going, but at the same time, do we really need all of these ESP home updates coming out? Boom, 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 like this. Like, you could probably condense it into a once a month or something like that. Work out the bugs amongst yourself and say, okay, here's the release. Here's the release notes that are, 100% accurate on what might break. That would be my only pet peeve, though. I mean, these guys are doing an amazing job. They have an amazing group of volunteers, and they're doing a great job. I mean, I don't even feel right giving that pet peeve, but if you're asking, that's mine.
Right. Dave?
I'd have to agree with Bob. The updates, the monthly updates are okay. They could probably push that out for a couple of months. And maybe do it 6 times a year. But other than that, I can't imagine where Home Assistant is going to be. Kind of like AI, I can't imagine where that's going to be in another year. I can't imagine what they're working on at Home Assistant, but they always amaze me. They do such a good job. And even with the updates, as much as we can complain about them, with the updates, they're pretty few breaking changes. So they do a pretty good job, and I'm very happy with it.
Bill?
Yeah, I mean, echo what Dave and Bob said, and I'll add maybe one tiny little pet peeve, and that's the difference between using the UI and using the YAML. I started my Home Assistant journey using UI because I started late, so that's right. I do everything. I do, though, often take something I've created in the UI and port it over to YAML in in one of the configuration files, just so I can document what I've done. And my pet peeve is I wish it was easier to document what you're doing in the UI than having to move it over to a YAML file and add your comments there.
All right. So I know that there's a lot, and I've had this debate about how often the updates come out. Again, it used to be every 2 weeks, so at least now it's only once a month. I get the point releases. The point I made, and back, they're much better now. The whole upgrade process and the release notes and breaking changes are all much, much better than they used to be a few years back. But the point releases always said that they would have 7, 8 point releases. And it's like, well, that's because you've got so many bugs because the software wasn't tested well enough in the beta stage. So maybe you should go to every other month so you have more time to beta test. But the flip side of that is the agile development, the rapid release, put it out there, fix the bugs. So it's so much better now. I don't mind the monthly updates. ESP Home, now that it is under the Open Home Foundation umbrella, I think will get better. They've already brought out a new website, which is much improved for the documentation. The release notes on ESP Home still need work. They need to be more like the ones on Home Assistant with the breaking changes. All you get is some kind of issue number and some, part number in there under the breaking changes. Sometimes it's not real helpful. So more of like the way that Home Assistant does it on the Home Assistant side. The only thing I would like to see the developers do is, as part of those release notes and the breaking changes, is to have a, what do you call it? I'm going to say sunsetting. That's not the right word. Depreciation setting. Because what will happen is they will announce something being depreciated, and they usually give you anywhere from 3 to 6 months advance notice. But that's the only time it's mentioned. Right. And so 6 months down the road, if you didn't catch that, all of a sudden you're bit by something like MQTT, that change. So I would like to see, in addition to the breaking changes, of depreciation. This is going to be depreciated in 2 months. This is going to be depreciated in 4 months. Every month is a constant reminder that these changes are coming. Because again, if you happen to miss one of those depreciation notices in the breaking changes, you're going to end up being bit by it and not even remember it until 6 months down the road when it actually happens. So, but I agree. I love Home Assistant. I've done a couple of videos where I've done some complaining about Home Assistant and then had to come out with another video saying, oh, they'd made it much better. Right. I do have a fear about what they're going to do with YAML. It seems like every time they move something into the UI, you lose a little bit of ability to do something in YAML. And that's especially true when they take integrations that used to be YAML integrations that are now native integrations. The most recent example is Octoprint for me. When they moved that from when I could define in YAML and say exactly how I wanted that integration to work to whatever options they made available for me in the integration, the automated integration. And I lost some functionality when that happened. So, but I did ask during the State of the Live Home, not this year, but last year, I actually asked Frank about the YAML. Was it eventually going to go away? Because they seem to be moving towards, newer users and not taking a lot of it. It just seems like every little bit YAML keeps getting stripped away. And like I said, I'm strictly a YAML guy. But he did assure us that there are no plans to sunset YAML and completely take that away. So, one of you guys do an HA voice tutorial. Who wants to volunteer to do an HA voice tutorial? I do plan on at some point in time getting around to doing that, but I need to find time. I guess I didn't really mention about my current. I am working on my most ambitious project to date. I'm not going to say what it is. I have released a couple of component videos that I'm doing ahead of time because I'll be using those components and I won't have time in that video to go into the details of the components. So it is my most ambitious project in terms of both the firmware and the code and the physical build itself. So that's taking a lot of my time right now, but I'm anxious to start doing some more work on that project. But as far as Home Assistant, again, for me, it is the local voice and potentially AI. That's the things that I want to look into. So anybody else out there in the comments have any questions for the four of us before we wrap this up? I do want to thank you guys for being a part of this and giving it your time.
And a pleasure.
I didn't mention that Mark is sitting over here, who always joins me as our moderator. So he's been sitting there, but not a lot of chat activity for me to moderate today. But that's okay. But otherwise, I do appreciate all of you guys being here. And, if this is popular and people liked it, definitely let me know down in the comments, and we can look at doing something like this again down the road.
Excellent.
Love to.
All right, guys. Well, once again, Octoprint, any of you integrating your 3D printers? Yes, I am. I do have mine integrated into Home Assistant. I don't know. Let's see if I can actually do this here without really screwing things up. Let's see if this actually works.
You want to talk about updates? That one sometimes gets updated 3 times a day. But don't have any control. The printer I'm using, they took away MQTT control unless you voided the warranty and went through different firmware. But I use it to turn my lights on and off on the printer. I've got LED lights above it to add more light to it. So when the printer starts, the lights turn on, a filter turns on to get rid of the noxious fumes that supposedly might come into the office. It's in my office, so I should have it in the garage, but it's much more convenient here. So things like that, it works pretty well. Plus I can, again, on my display in the living room, I can see I'm printing layer 20 of 400, and I know when it's going to be done. If there's a printer error, my speakers tell me you've got a clogged nozzle. Things like that. Yeah.
And I just realized that again. I clicked the wrong button when I went to show my the thing here and lost the audio again. But yeah, I do have mine integrated into Octopi integrated into Home Assistant. But again, other than let's see if I can do that. Anyway, I can do that one more time. This time, let's try that with the audio. Okay, now you can see that and you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So mine is pretty basic. It's mostly information that I bring in. I do have a kill switch, which is really a Sonoff S31 that has Tasmota flash to it. So if I am remote and I get some kind of alert, something like that, I can actually look at the printer and I can hit that button to actually kill the power to the printer if I need to. So, but I don't do a lot of control from Home Assistant. I don't actually start prints or anything like that. It's more of monitoring for me. Oh, okay. Let's go back to this. The comments in there. Okay. All right, well, guys, once again, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close. It should be available out on YouTube. It takes a few hours before the chat is available live, but you should be able to watch this. My plans are to maybe edit this down a little bit and release it as a long form video as well. So, but again, if you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments, and we can look at doing this again. Until that time, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you all soon.
Sounds great, guys. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.